Hey, hello everyone. My name is Tareq Fadel, and I'll be presenting this afternoon's session, which is basically looking at how to build a mobile web application using jQuery Mobile, and I'm going to use a new tool. Well, it's quite an old tool, but the new edition of the tool, which is Dreamweaver CS5.5, which was only released a few weeks ago, maybe about a month or two ago. One of the additions that they've added to Dreamweaver is they've added the framework of jQuery Mobile, which will give the ability to build mobile web applications that can be delivered natively. And so I'll be talking about the workflow process, and then towards the end of the session, we'll have a look at how to actually build one from an example. Okay, for those of you that were in the last session or were here, oh, by the way, that's the hashtag for Twitter, if anyone's on Twitter. The exercise files for this example can be found from that URL there, which is ge.tt/9xc in lowercase nn capitals 48. Okay, so if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to. I'm also recording the session, so for those of you, if you want to have a recap, you can go. Literally, second I'm out of here, it'll be uploaded live. For those of you that were in the last session or missed the last session, I've got the URL for the video there, which is bit.ly. It's chopped off the last bit, but it says Designers Fiesta 2 CSS3, because the last session was about CSS3. Okay, and that's my Twitter ID if you want to follow it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start off with a little bit of theory, explaining the workflow process of what it is and what's all this mobile web apps. To do that, I'm going to use Prezi. Who's heard of Prezi? Prezi.com. It's a great tool, isn't it? Yeah, it's fantastic. Far better than PowerPoint. I see PowerPoint, I fall asleep. Okay, so Prezi.com. Okay, for those of you that don't know Prezi, it's a web application. It's all based in the cloud. It's based on Flash. But they've also actually made, only recently, they've made it iPad compatible, which is a fallback system. I haven't tested it on iPad, which is a HTML5 JavaScript version of their Flash. I'm assuming it's not the default, because it's probably not as effective as the, probably only the presentation aspect is HTML5, but creating it still uses Flash. Okay, so I'll start off with a presentation, and then what we'll do is we'll have a look at some websites and technologies, and then towards the end of the session, I'll run you through the process of creating an application using the new tool. Okay, so let's have a look at what mobile web apps is. So I'll just load up. Yeah, sure. Let's see. And it is louder if I'm closer to the microphone, so that's all right. I'll try and be a little bit closer. Okay, so I'll just put it full screen. Let me just start this, and then I'll stand next to the microphone. Okay, so the first thing is, obviously, we're all familiar with the concept of a desktop and a desktop machine and what it does, and we've had them for yonks, and only recently the concept of having what are called web apps or apps in general, but we've always had apps. It's just a shortened version of applications. And in the desktop, what we mean by with desktop, in a lot of cases, you're familiar with the concept of buying an application off the shelf, or buying a computer game, or even like Xbox and PS3. It's still in itself is considered a desktop or a console, because you go to the shop and you buy yourself a game, you put it in, and then you run it. In a lot of cases, it's offline access. So some of them do have. Only recently, you notice that these applications will give you online access, but you're associated it with being offline access, and you you put the CD in and you install it, and then you can use it. So that's the concept of applications that you have. Now, with these applications, this is an example of an application that you'd have on a Windows platform that you normally see. And some examples of applications would be like Word, Excel, even an email client like Outlook, or Photoshop, for example. So these would be a concept that we're all familiar with. And it's only recently that we've kind of started to see a new trend of applications that appear, and these are web-based applications. One of the most common web-based applications that you probably all have or use is an email client. For example, a Yahoo, Gmail, or a Hotmail account, where you basically need internet access to be able to log in and access your emails. So from that, loads of different organizations and application vendors start to create this aspect of, oh, why do you have to go to the shop and buy something and then you have to take the CD home and install it? Wouldn't it be easier to just go to a web page and just access it, type it in, and off you go? So the problem was a couple of things, limitations. The first is the limitation of net access, essentially, broadband. You know, it's a lot of cases for you to run an application, you need to have a fast connection. Because if you're running things on 56K modem, by the time you've read the email, it would have expired. So, you know, that's a slight exaggeration, but you know, you don't have Photoshop online as of yet, but that's just a matter of time. It will be a situation where you'll be able to log on to Photoshop.com and you'll have the full-featured Photoshop available for you. I showed you examples, or had it there as a bullet point of Word and Excel. You know, we have now Google Docs. Even Microsoft have realized that you can have these applications on the cloud. And you've all heard the term, what is on the cloud? And I can't remember what the Microsoft version is, but if you Google it and have a look, there is a cut-down version of their Office 2010 online. And the basic version is free as well, because they notice that the market share is competing with what Google is offering in terms of their spreadsheet and their Word document. And some of these features you will notice that are far better on the cloud than they are offline access. Like, for example, Google Docs and in terms of Word, in terms of collaborating, it's very difficult to do any kind of collaboration with Word, because you do what you need to do and then review it, and then you have to send it off to someone else. It gets sent by email, and it's just very difficult. For Google Docs, because it's online, you can do all the collaboration there and then live with, as you type, people then see what you're typing. So it's pretty much instant. So there are benefits and features of using a web-based application. Again, who here uses Chrome? Okay, for those of you that do use Chrome, who's been aware of the Chrome Web Store? Okay, the Chrome Web Store, again, I'll show you, this is like just a screenshot of it, but I'll show you in access. It's basically like apps for your iPhone, but for the browser itself, and a lot of these apps are HTML5 apps, okay, and basically what you can do is log on to a lot of these applications from any browser, more so a modern browser, so Chrome, Safari, or Opera, or Firefox, and you can use them without really needing to download or install anything. It does give you the ability to install it, but that just gives you an access to go to where you want. What they've recently done, actually, what Chrome have done, this is the latest release, which is 14, which came out a week ago, so you're probably one of the first people to hear about this. And the nice thing about Chrome is it auto-updates, so you've probably already got version 14 without even realizing. But does anyone know what the new edition of what Google Chrome 14 has? It basically supports native clients, which basically, if you've written an application in C or C++, you can then have it on the Chrome Web Store, and it will run natively within the browser itself. Now, the advantages of that, rather than having a web app, is it can access the CPU, the horsepower of your machine, and the graphics power of your machine at very high end. It's a bit like an installable app, but it being through a cloud-based service. So you'll see high-end applications. You could probably even do things like video editing and Photoshop editing, and AutoCAD, Autodesk did a version of it, and there's 2 or 3 applications that have come out. There's a couple of them which are games, so which is great for graphics, which allows you to use Chrome as a platform for delivery. One of the reasons they actually did do that is because of their Chromebook, which is a netbook based on a Linux version, and all it is, nothing else but a browser. So you log in and you can actually do everything that you want to do through the cloud, which is quite clever. So yeah, it's, a lot of cases web apps would be like Chrome Web Store, or Firefox add-ons, again, would be considered that. Again, who's heard of Spotify or used Spotify? Okay, so it's great. Again, that's an example of a web app, because again, you don't install anything. You go there and access the information that you want, and the whole of Spotify, and another one called Grooveshark. Can't remember what Spotify was built in, but I'm pretty sure the alternative, which is Grooveshark, it's all HTML5 apart from one aspect, and that's the audio. But the interface and everything, the functionality, the way it accesses the data and organizes the data, is all HTML5 and JavaScript. But the reason the audio is not HTML5, it's still Flash, is because there's still some synchronization issues with the audio in HTML5. But that will come, and you will notice that the whole thing will be built in HTML5. Obviously, the danger of building things in HTML5 is that for older browsers, it's not going to work. You don't have that as much of an issue on mobile phones or smartphones, because smartphones are a new technology as such. So all the browsers on smartphones are modern browsers as such. Yeah, Google Docs again is a web app. Grooveshark and IGIndex. IGIndex is a spread betting trading platform. Again, you can trade stocks and shares like no tomorrow, all directly from the browser. They don't have, a lot of their competitors, you'd need to create an account, download something, install it, and then it's on your machine, and if you go to somewhere else you can't use it, you have to then download it, and security issues, this, that and the other. But again, by having a web app, just go to any internet cafe, do it from your phone if you want, and it just gives you the flexibility. It doesn't really care what device you're using, whether it's an iPhone, iPad, a Galaxy Tab, Zoom, or a Blackberry Playbook. It doesn't really care, because the internet is the internet, or the World Wide Web is the World Wide Web. As long as you've got a browser that can support the technologies it was built in, it'll work, which is fascinating. Okay, and then and then came mobile. Everyone's got a mobile phone, and everybody wants a mobile phone, and you started to get little applications that were built for mobile phones. But when mobile phones first came out, it was pretty much again, later on, you had like Snake. Who remembered Snake? Yeah, again, that is essentially an application, but it was pre-installed by the manufacturer, which was Nokia. But again, Nokia and a lot of and Sony Ericsson, they opened up the platform and allowed developers to build applications for the phone itself. So if you're a custom programmer, you could build a Java program that you can then go to the actual device platform and buy it and install it and play it from there. So here's an example of a mobile phone. And then smartphones came out, and everybody wanted a smartphone. Okay, and what is a smartphone? It's basically a phone that does everything that your desktop computer could do. There are people out there, believe it or not, that their whole internet life, or they access everything through the internet is through a smartphone. This girl I know, and literally checks her email, checks her Facebook, on Twitter, doesn't have a computer, never uses a computer. Every now and then she's in an internet cafe, but on a day-to-day basis she uses the smartphone for accessing. And this is the trend that will happen worldwide. There's a very, very big movement. We're in an internet revolution at the moment, and it happens every few years. The last big one was about 10 years. And there was one about 2005, around the time when Ajax came out. But we are through a very, very big internet revolution at the moment. Well, I mean, why is it an internet revolution? For a few things. This is due to HTML5 and CSS3, which are, again, just been released. But this gives us access to do things that we weren't able to do before. Because with HTML4 and the CSS2, it was basically presentation and structure for presenting documents. But for you to build an application as such was quite difficult, or you had to do it through server-side. But now you can actually build applications using the device itself. And the other aspect is looking at how people access the internet. People don't visit a website for information anymore. They visit a website to interact with it. Okay, and the medium of social media has completely changed that. And when you look at how designers and developers, or even clients, when they come over to you and say, I would like to have a website, they're thinking, and you're thinking, okay, that means people will view it on a desktop machine. That's how we think nowadays. But you shouldn't really, this will change, because 2 years from now, the dominance will be mobile phones. More people will be looking on the internet through a handheld device than you will through a desktop. Now, the reason I say this is if you look globally, like if you look at Angola, it's one of the fastest growing developing countries in the world, and they looked at the infrastructure of putting in landlines. They decided not to, and it basically has a mobile network. From what I read, or maybe it's due to be released, it's got a 4G network, which it has speeds that are faster than most broadband that we have here in the UK. So everyone will be accessing the internet through mobile devices, which was just fascinating. Actually, an interesting fact is that there are more people around the world that have a Nokia phone than they have a toothbrush, which is fascinating. Again, those that do have the Nokia phone, which is the cheap £6 Nokia that you can get from third world countries that they still sell, 5 years from now, those will be smartphones because the cost of manufacturing would have dropped what they are now for what is a standard phone. So everyone will be accessing. I'll be showing you some statistics later on as well. Okay, so smartphones. With smartphones, the most popular one is an iPhone. Okay, and when iPhone came out, everybody wanted an iPhone. Actually, there's an interesting saying that iPhone is for sheep and Androids are for geeks. That was Gina Trapani who quoted that. Okay, so everybody wanted one of those, which is the iPhone. Actually, the iPhone 5 is coming out soon, so I'm sure everyone will want one of those. So when the iPhone came out, again, Steve Jobs didn't anticipate the apps movement. It was a fluke, a chance. Okay, it was just at the right time, and basically the idea with the iPhone, it was supposed to be an internet device. You can actually log on and visit a website and use the applications on the website. And they were one of the founders and developers of WebKit, which gave you the facility of being able to do so. But there just wasn't, the content wasn't there, the movement wasn't there, and people wanted to build things natively for the device because first of all, the internet wasn't fast enough when the iPhone 1 first came out, and the HTML5 and CSS3 was still underdeveloped in those days for it to be able to do so. So they kind of opened up the platform and gave developers the chance to build native apps. And with building native apps, and this is what I mean by native, is that something that is, in terms of the iPhone, is built for the iPhone in Objective-C, which again, you have to be a pretty decent programmer to work with Objective-C. It's not an easy language to learn. Okay, and whatever you build will only work on the iPhone or iPad's iOS specific. Okay, what about the Blackberry? Again, that's another smartphone. So I now built my app for the iPhone. I want to build it for the app, Blackberry, as the Blackberry app world that you can actually build things for. Okay, and here's an example of a Blackberry device. Okay, again, Blackberries. When iPhone first came out, BlackBerry was a lot more popular than iPhones. And then there's Android, which came out recently. Actually, there's more Android users now than iPhone users or BlackBerry users. It's the most popular smartphone platform that there is. And everyone's saying, oh, I want to build an app. And the first thing that people think of is, I want to build an iPhone app. But that's just a buzzword. iPhone app is last year. Move on with the times. It's basically Android is the dominant one now. So if you're ever thinking of building an app and you want to build it natively, build one for the biggest market share. The biggest market share at the moment is Android. Then you can start to think of the alternative platforms that are available. Okay, so here's the cute little Android. And then obviously there's Java. Now, if you the programming languages, so we talked about Objective-C, and Objective-C is for building for iPhone and iPad specific. But if you want to build for BlackBerry or for the Android, you'd have to build it using Java. And Java is quite a high-end programming language. And they both use different SDKs. SDK is a software development kit. and they have their own ways. But if you are a Java programmer, it's just learning the tool sets for each device that would get you to do what you need to do. Okay, and then came HTML5. Okay, or it actually has been around in these devices, but it was still in its early days. To what it could do, to what it can do now is a lot more advanced, and people have been trialing it out and testing it and pushing it to its limit to see what it can do. And then they released the HTML5 logo. So that's the logo there. And again, CSS3, which is both HTML5 and CSS3 are unofficially released. They're not released yet. HTML5 was supposed to be finalized May this year, just gone, for bug revisions, but it's still not officially released as of yet. But you can use it. Now, CSS3 is still in draft. That means it's nowhere near finished. It's still in the process of being changed. And as week on week, if you just follow the trends of what's happening to CSS3, it's changing, and there's more things they're introducing. Actually, in my last session, I was just showing some future technologies of what CSS3 was able to do. Okay, and then you've got JavaScript. JavaScript's been around with us for donkey's years. Okay, and it's becoming one of it probably is the most influential and most important programming language that there is. Things that you can do with JavaScript is just beyond the wildest dreams that you can think of from a programmer's point of view. And only recently that you were able to do what you can do with JavaScript is because of HTML5. All that HTML5 is just the front end. It's just the platform that allows you to deliver what JavaScript can do. And here's the logo. And again, there are what are called JavaScript frameworks, because JavaScript again can be quite complex, and there's so much you can do with it. And for you to be able to write anything that is within a development framework, a development time. Say, for example, you needed to build this application. Probably take you 6 months if you needed to build it from scratch. But if you have a framework, you could probably knock it up in a month. Okay, because it's pre-built libraries that you can just use and reuse. Again, who's heard of jQuery? Okay, again, jQuery is a JavaScript framework that all you have to do is download the framework and just use bits of it. So if I wanted to create an animation, something to move from here to here, again, I normally would have to write that much JavaScript. But if I'm using jQuery, I can do that with one line, okay, because it accesses that framework and it tells it to do it when I need to, which is great. So there's loads of frameworks that have come out. Again, there is jQuery, and they've recently released jQuery Mobile. And with jQuery Mobile, it's unreleased. It's still in beta, but people have started to develop with it. And it's a UI, a user interface that allows you to build specifically for mobile devices. We'll have a look at the website of jQuery Mobile and how it works and how effectively you can use it. But it's an amazing platform because everything's pre-built for you. So in essence, it feels and looks like a native iPhone app, but it isn't. It's through a website, which is quite fascinating. Now, but what about, so jQuery Mobile is the UI, the user interface. What about the functionality? How do you actually make an application work? How do you get an application to access the GPS or the accelerometer, or GPS like location-based services, or the controls, the buttons that are on the iPhone that aren't specifically on a desktop machine? So these are things that are built specifically for the phone itself. So Sencha, a company based in the Silicon Valley, have set up Sencha Touch, which again is a JavaScript framework specifically designed for adding that functionality. So with the UI, the front end of jQuery Mobile and Sencha together, you can start to build some amazing applications. Now, how do you package this? How do you put them all together to create one application that you can then install or access from a web application? And there's a service or a company called PhoneGap, which allows you to put these together. What it does, what PhoneGap does, again, I'll show you the website, is it takes HTML with CSS3 and JavaScript and outputs natively to each of the devices. So it will produce an Objective-C application for the iPhone. It will produce an Objective-C application for the iPad. It will produce something for the Blackberry, and it will produce something for the Android. The advantage of this is you build once, deploy many times. So you can actually build your application. It will work on the web. So you can sell it on Chrome Web Store. Okay, you can have it just as a URL so you can access it. You can then have it just as a website so you can access it from your mobile phone, or you can then have it as an installable app. So if you want to go to the App Store and download it and install it, you can do so just by using PhoneGap to give you that facility. PhoneGap only recently, in the last 2-3 weeks, released PhoneGap 1. That means they've removed all the bugs and it's working. Supposedly they say 100%, but anything with cutting-edge technology, always test, test, test. Don't rely on what people say. Yes, it works. Okay, because it might work on the iPhone 4, but it might not work on the iPhone 5. You don't know until you've got one and tested it. Okay, and then Dreamweaver CS5.5 came out, and I said, okay, why don't we simplify the process and put all this together? So what they did is they got jQuery mobile, not Sencha. Sencha you'd have to code it in yourself. But you can basically use jQuery mobile, which is built into Dreamweaver CS5.5. It uses the Xcode library, which is for building the iPhone packager. It uses the Android SDK for building Android phones. And then it uses PhoneGap to produce the application for you. And I'll run you through the process of building an application using Dreamweaver CS5.5 for that facility. So it simplifies the process. Of course, you can do it without. I've tried doing it without, and it's very, very long-winded. But here, it's literally one click and it's done. It is that easy. Okay, enough of that. Next thing is what we'll do is let's have a look at some statistics. So, any of you familiar with gsstatcounter.com? I showed this in the last presentation. This is basically a statistical website that gathers information of different browsers that are available. You can see that there's a trend there for Chrome. It's one of the fastest growing browsers that there is ever. But the reason I want to come over here is I want to show you something that hasn't happened yet, but there's a lot of talks and speculation of what's going to happen. And if we have a look over here, mobile versus desktop. Okay, we don't see much. Okay, you can see that there's a trend, and it's a very, very slight trend, and if it carries on at the rate that it's going, it'll probably take another 50 years for it to overlap. But in statistical analysis, there's something called the hockey stick effect, where you see something like this, where it's very gradual, and then suddenly, before you know it, it goes woof, and the other one goes woof. It's speculated that within 5 years, not 5 years time, within 5 years, that you'll have this where the mobile usage, people accessing the internet, will overtake desktop usage. And when that happens, and you haven't designed your websites for that purpose, like if you look at most websites now, probably about 5% have got a mobile version of it, okay, and 95% are built for the desktop. 2 years from now, let's say this happens 2 years from now, that means 95% of websites are not optimized for mobile. Okay, so where would you rather be, in the 5% or the 95%? So you need to rethink your strategy and design for mobile first, then design for desktop. Okay, which is very difficult for us to think like that from a web developer's perspective, because all we think of is desktop, desktop, desktop. But 2 years is only around the corner. So have a look. Okay, so we're talking about platforms. So jQuery. Okay, so if we just go to jQuery, so this is the framework for jQuery, what was it? Just going to show you some demos. jQuery demo. I thought it was on the main page, but it's not. I was going to show you some examples of jQuery, but jQuery just allows you to create some user interface. So it's got the jQuery UI and jQuery animations as well. But jQuery Mobile. Anybody worked with jQuery Mobile? Okay, yeah. So jQuery Mobile, again, they only just released beta 3. I don't know when the full mobile version 1 will be finished, but they keep on finding bugs and fixing it as we speak. But as you can see, you build once and it works on a multitude of devices, which is amazing. Just to give you an example of what jQuery Mobile looks like, here's an example of jQuery Mobile. So it, again, looks like an iPhone. So if I resize this one smaller, okay, until it is an iPhone. Notice it automatically structures itself. It uses aspects of like CSS3 media query, so it works out what the device size is. So if I'm working on an iPad, it gives me full view. But if I'm working on if I turn my iPad sideways, okay, it'll give me that. Or if I turn it down to an iPhone, it'll give me that. Okay, so which is again quite effective. And if I click on these, as you can see, the page animations change. And if I click on that, it takes me back again. So everything is built in terms of how you would expect to use it from a mobile phone device. Again, what the jQuery mobile has is it's got a built-in JavaScript frameworks that will access the mobile phone's touch sensitivity. So if you do with one finger or two fingers or three fingers or do an upward swipe or pinch and zoom, it recognizes these and it passes that information back to the phone to give you the feedback that you want. Okay, so again, here's our, sorry, I was going to show you. Yeah, so you've got toolbars. Yeah, so you can build nested lists. So as you can see, I can drill down to get to where I want to, so I can have numbered lists as well. Okay, and now a lot of the cases, what's available in Dreamweaver CS5.5 is some of these, not all of them, and I'll show you how to access these from the actual application itself. So again, you've got buttons, so like here, yes, no, and so on, up and down. So there's so much, as you can see, that's available in terms of what it does. And let's have a look at the forms. So again, you've got these sliders. Okay, and everything's designed for the finger. So as you can see, the button's quite big, so it gives you the ability to be able to access it how you want. And you've got different themes. Okay, so you can change the colors of the themes quite effectively. So all that is built into the framework itself. Okay, so it gives you the UI, as I said. So as you can see, you can open these up. And here's the touch events. So it's got tap, tap, hold, swipe, swipe left, swipe right. So what you can say is if the user swipes left, run this, do this, or go to this page, or open up an image. So you can program it from there quite easily using JavaScript and jQuery. Okay, so there's something else that I want to show you is, let's go up here, jQuery mobile from S. Okay, so what we need to know is, will it work? Okay, so we can, this is great, but how do we know it's going to work or not? Well, what they've done is they've built a mobile graded browser support because there's, as you know, there's tons and tons of different mobile phones that are about. So how do we know what's going to work and what's not going to work? Here's all the devices that people use. So iOS, the Blackberry, and Android are the three most popular. You've also got Windows Mobile and Symbian, which is the Nokia devices. And depending on which version that you've got, will it work and will it not? And again, it's got different grades of what will work and what's not. And again, it tells you what the problems are in terms of what A grade, B grade, and C grade are. So again, when designing things, always pay attention to see what will work. But again, do your own testing, but have an idea instead of wasting time. And say, for example, a big user base are Apple iPhone 2.21. Then you need to think, okay, or say, for example, a lot of users are older versions of Blackberry, then there's no point designing something if you know it's not going to work. So you can save yourself a lot of time by looking at aspects like that. Again, I don't have time to go through this slideshow, but they do have a very, very good slideshow talking about cross-browser compatibility and making sure that it works with different devices. So have a look at that one that's there as well. Okay, I found this website actually, which is very, very useful. jQuery.gallery.com, which is like a showcase of different websites that are built using jQuery mobile. These are websites; they're not applications. That you could package them as an application using PhoneGap if you wanted to, but these are physical websites that you can access through your iPhone Safari browser. Okay, again, any browser, any mobile phone browser, as long as it's a smartphone, and you can actually see this. Let's pick one just to see what it looks like. This one looks interesting. I'm going to resize it to make it look like a browser. And as you can see, you get the loading screen, which gives you the facility like an application that's being installed. And then allow. Okay, so again, it's using GPS location services. So I can sign up, I can sign in. Let's see if I want restaurants. So again, I've got my restaurants here, and then I can do that. And I don't have swipe, but if I've got swipe, I can swipe through the different aspects from there. So again, it's an informational type. And again, it has GPS location, tells me where I am, where the restaurant is, and so on. Actually, the app that I'm going to be building later on is very similar to this one. Okay, and then it takes you to the full website if you want to. So yeah, so it's worth pursuing and having a look at what other people have built to give you ideas. What can I build using this framework? And those are a few examples. Next thing is I want to show you Sencha itself. Sencha's organization. How are we doing for time? Okay. So if we go to sencha.com, who's heard of Sencha? Okay. Again, Sencha here is a relatively new company. They do some amazing technologies. They look at JavaScript and build frameworks for that. Some of their frameworks that they do, Sencha Animator for building CSS3 animations, and you've got XJS, which allows you to create things like this, for example, charts, interactive charts that change as the real-time data changes. But they've added the chart support into Sencha Touch, which is the one I'm interested in. What this does, it's the first HTML5 mobile web app framework, which allows you to access the device controls purely by JavaScript. So if you want to access the GPS, you write one line instead of 300 lines. Okay, it supports all of these touch events, okay, that you can trigger. So basically, what you can do is take the jQuery mobile and extend it. Okay, rather than just concentrating on the UI, you can actually have some functionality in that the app actually does do something rather than just give you information. And again, the Sencha Touch will allow you to do that. So again, we can actually see some demos of that. So here, if I visit the kitchen sink, for example, again, this is best visited from an iPad or a device, because then you can actually see. This is the UI aspects. Again, you can work with data, like you can pull in data from a Twitter feed, for example. One of the applications I built previously was actually pulling in a Twitter feed with specific hashtags, and then it will present that in a list format for you. Okay, it has again, it has charts. Touch chart. Yeah, this is a new addition that they added to Sencha Touch, which is basically real-time data representation. So it does infographics on the fly. So as the data changes, it changes for you. So let's say, for example, I was monitoring the humidity and the heat in this room. So as it increases, decreases, it can change the bar chart on the fly as I'm looking at it, which is great for a mobile phone application device. Again, if you're looking into stocks and shares or anything of that, the data changes very, very quickly. It can be used quite effectively for that. So that's Sencha Touch, and they've got the app gallery. So again, if you want some inspiration to see what it does, they have a ton of apps. I say a ton. It's probably, you can actually count them there. There's probably about 60 to 80 different apps that are released. But last time I looked at that, they had 10, and that was probably about a month ago. So it's grown massively. It's very, very new technology. It's very cutting edge, again, these can then be packaged into a native app, which is the next thing that I'm going to show you, which is PhoneGap. Anyone heard here of PhoneGap? Okay, so again here, PhoneGap is the only open source mobile framework that supports 6 platforms. Basically, what you do is you build one. So I'm just going to show you this video here because
PhoneGap is a cross-platform native development framework that enables you to essentially write native applications for various mobile phone platforms with HTML, JavaScript, and CSS.
It's super easy. If you know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can build a PhoneGap application.
PhoneGap is free to download from PhoneGap.com, and you can just start writing your HTML, compile it with PhoneGap, and install it on your phone. So PhoneGap today runs on iOS, so iPhone and iPad, Android, Blackberry, WebOS, all HP devices, Symbian, Windows Phone 7, Beta.
I think the big reason why we built PhoneGap is because we're big believers in the web, and we wanted to develop applications using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We didn't want to get locked into particular vendor proprietary platforms.
We wanted to reuse our HTML and JavaScript development skills, which we've been developing here at Nitobi over the last 10 years, and we wanted to leverage those, and we thought other people would want to as well. PhoneGap has been used to build thousands and thousands of applications.
You've already probably, for those who do have a smartphone, you probably already have a
cloud-based service that lets you
an application that's
compile
built
and
with
do
PhoneGap
a lot
without
of
even
development with
realizing.
PhoneGap.
You upload it to our servers where we actually do the build process for you.
So you don't have to go and download all these different SDKs and toolkits to get set up to build PhoneGap. We take care of all that for you.
PhoneGap's strengths come from the fact that it's based on open standards. You get a lot of reuse of your web development skills, as well as the frameworks and tools that you're used to working with on the web.
What that means is you don't have to go out and hire an Objective-C expert, Java expert, and so on and so forth. So you can reuse code and you can reuse your existing team to build native applications that you can then deploy to app stores and install directly on handsets.
So the API for PhoneGap is pretty simple, one being sensors.
Sensors being things like geolocation, accelerometer, camera.
We also have access to what we call data APIs, so things like the file system. You can read and write files, you can access contact information.
There's tons of companies, big and small, using PhoneGap today. Some of the bigger names are companies like Logitech, Fox Media, National Film Board of Canada,
Alcatel-Lucent, Adobe, IBM.
All the big vendors believe in the mobile web.
Nitobi is the main contributor to the PhoneGap project. Today we've had well over 500,000 downloads of the PhoneGap framework. It's really a large community of people using PhoneGap and lots of people to talk to and bounce ideas off of if you're developing with the framework.
If you need to take it to the next level, you can always come to Nitobi, and we offer support, training, and consulting services.
Okay, so that's PhoneGap there. Just close this. It's open source, yes, and Nitobi is the company that's developing it in cooperation with Adobe. Adobe are contributing to it as well, and anyone else that wants to contribute to it. So Nitobi don't make any money from it. You only make money from support, which they have support packages because it's very, very cutting edge. It doesn't work 100%, and there are, you could spend the time trying to figure it out yourself, but it'd be easier to send a quick email saying, how do you do this? Oh, this is how you do it. So they got support packages, and that's where they make their money from. But itself, it is free, and you can work on it from there. So you can download it. But what I want to show you is, what was it? Supported features. The supported features. What can you use that you weren't able to use if you were using a mobile web app as opposed to an installable app? Okay, and as you can see, you have a lot more. It basically takes what jQuery Mobile wasn't able to deliver and takes it to the next level. Again, using Sencha Touch, you can then add these capabilities like compass, camera, accelerometer. And if you look at, say, for example, iPhone 3GS, you can support everything on the iPhone as if it was an actual installable app. An app that was built natively in Objective-C. So you don't actually have to learn Objective-C anymore. The only time you would really need to build something in Objective-C is if you're building a high-end level game, okay? Because then you'd need to access the raw power of the processor and the graphics card. But for most apps that you see on the App Store, no. You could probably build it like this, and the development time will be a third of what it would be if it was Objective-C. Plus, you wouldn't need to hire an Objective-C programmer or learn it yourself. And what about all the other platforms, okay, which is 6 or 7 different devices that you need to think of. And here you build it once and it'll work on all of them, which is, again, quite amazing. Okay, so let me just open up one last thing I want to show you before I move into Dreamweaver. Let me open this up. Mobile. A couple of statistics. Open up the other one as well. Doing for time. I'll go into Dreamweaver. So I'm running out of time. I'll show you what I can afterwards. Okay, so this is Dreamweaver CS5.5. Anyone here downloaded the trial or actually purchased the program? Okay, have you had a chance to play with the mobile stuff? Okay, it's very easy. I'll show you how. Okay, so first of all, what I'm going to do is going to set up the site, the Dreamweaver site. Okay, and let me continue the trial. Okay, let me see first of all if I have the folder. So I have a folder here called Mobile, jQuery Mobile. Yep, that's that one. And let's create another one called Meridian Mobile. Okay, so I've got a finished example. First I'll show you, and then I'll go back and have a go at creating one. Okay, actually, let's do the jQuery Mobile first. So I'll call it jQuery Mobile. And if I then go to the desktop, Designers Fiesta, Mobile, jQuery Mobile, click on Choose, click on Save. Okay, so that's created these are the pages that exist. So if I want to create a new page, okay, what they've done is if I go to File, New, okay, you'll notice that here there are pre-built templates, okay, as there was in the older versions, but you will notice that I have HTML5, which these are two new ones, but apart from that I can also have a look at creating a HTML template. Here it is. Page from, that's the one. Page from sample, and they have mobile starter. And as you can see, I can do a jQuery mobile, CDN, local, or PhoneGap. I'm going to use the PhoneGap one. And all I have to do is create. Okay, and when I do that, basically has it pre-built for me. Now the way jQuery mobile does, you notice that when we were looking at the jQuery example, I was moving from page to page. Really, all that was on one page. It's one HTML file. It just gives you the illusion that it's on many pages when I swipe. Okay, because it moves, basically what they are div boxes. It just moves each div box out of the screen. Okay, but everything is loaded onto one page. Okay. Yeah, exactly. They're all on one page. It just gives you the illusion that it is on different pages. You do have the facility of loading up another page if you want to, but it makes sense to download the whole page and keep everything on one page. It'll only show you page by page, because obviously a mobile phone screen is a lot smaller than a desktop screen. So this is how it would look like initially in design view. I don't work in design view. What I tend to do is work in code view. Okay, and I tend to split the view like so and turn on live view. Now when live view does, it simulates the browser, and I can actually see what it would look like. So as you can see, when I click on it, it takes me to page 2, and I can go back and go to page 3 and so on, and go back, and page 4 and go back. Okay, and any changes I can do straight into the code itself. And as I change it, it will change it accordingly. It does have a multi-screen view. Again, if I click on that, oh, it didn't work because I have to save it first. So if I save that file, okay, notice as I save that file, it will need all these files for it to work. Okay, which is the framework for it. So if I save that, let's say on jQuery mobile, and I'll call this one page 1. Okay, and click save. Again, it creates all of these. Copy. Okay, so again, it's created the folder for that to work. And then if I click on multi-screen preview, it will show me what it would look like on a phone. It will show me what it would look like on a tablet and on the desktop as well. Okay, because if it's a jQuery mobile website, doesn't necessarily mean it's only for the phone. Okay, and as you can see, I can test it and see what it would look like. And it simulates on all 3 devices simultaneously, which again is quite useful. So again, if I wanted to, yeah, this default view, it doesn't. You can add what's called media query, and if I go to multi-screen, as you can see here, called media queries, and I can say, what you can do is you can say site-wide media queries, and then you can specify, here it is, if you click on plus, you can then say media query 1, I call this one iPhone, and what's the maximum of an iPhone width? Is 320. So if it's 320, then make it look like this, and then you say iPad, you work out what the dimensions of iPad is, make it look like that. So each one can have a specific CSS for repositioning and laying out how you want. A good example of that is a website There's a few of them, but one off the top of my head is Hicks Design, that uses hicksdesign.co.uk, which uses that example. Okay, so here's the website. Okay, but as I resize it, notice how the images, these are images, it's using CSS3 to resize it, and then when it gets to a certain size, notice it rejigs the website, and then when I do that again, it rejigs the website to a lot smaller. So again, I've got an iPhone version for that. This is why I was saying that you need to kind of think of building from the smaller device first, outwards, and then you'll notice, oh God, wow, I've got so much room. I can then rejig them and put them to where I want. Because I'm running out of time, I want to show you the deployment process of how to finish a device. So let me go to let's close that one. Okay, and if I go to File, where is it? Site, New Site. Let's call this one Meridian. Browse, pick the Meridian Mobile. This is a finished example. Okay, save. Okay, so here's my index.html. So I open that up. Okay, and as you can see, this is what it would look like. Again, ignore design view. But if I look at it in live view, again, it's as you can see, it's got a map. You can access the phone devices, and then I can go back, barbecue, and so on. Okay, so yeah, this is the app itself, which is built. Now it does have GPS location, so you can use Sencha and a bit of JavaScript, which goes at the top to access the device-specific aspects of that. So if you want to then build that as an application so you can actually sell it on the App Store, you then need to deploy it. So what you do is you can go to Site, Mobile Applications. First thing you need to do is configure your application framework. It has a little button here called Easy Install. Now, it's literally as easy as that. You click a button, it goes to the Google Android website, downloads the SDK and installs it on your machine. Literally, it takes, depending on how fast your connection is, it takes about 5 minutes. Once you've done that, it's installed. Trying to do that without that button took me a good hour and a half to try and figure out what needed doing. Okay, so it's a great time saver. Also, you'd need the SDK for iOS, okay, which you can download from the App Store if you have 10.7. If you have Windows, forget it. You can't deploy anything for the iPhone. It's Apple saying, no, if you want to build an iPhone app, you must have an Apple device. So if you want to build, basically Dreamweaver CS5.5 will deploy to Android and iPhone only. But if you want to deploy to other devices, you can use PhoneGap, but not using Dreamweaver. You'd have to go to the PhoneGap website to do so. Once you've configured these, all you have to do then is go to Site, Mobile Applications, and then click on Application Settings. Okay, and then you basically have to choose, fill these in, to load. Okay, so you basically choose your devices, target path, where it's going to save it. You can even choose an application icon, so what icon you want to use it, and a startup screen. I'll leave that for now. And then after that, it's literally, as I said, a click of a button. If I click on Build, okay, thanks. Oh, I know why. I need to put an author name, T. Fadel. Click on Save, Site, Mobile Applications. Here you go, Build, and I can build and emulate. So let's say, for example, I want to build it for the Android. Okay, so it loads the Android simulator. And you can do the same as well for the iPhone. But again, once you've got the iPhone SDK, you literally plug it in, set up developer mode on there, and then it gives you a file called an APK. Load the APK on there, double click it, and you can install it. I've done that, installed it on here. I'm just waiting for this to load up. Find it. Turn this on. Okay, so there's Meridian Mobile. See that? Okay, that's this icon here. So I'll load that up. So there's the application loading. And there it is, deployed. And I can actually click on these and it works. It uses the GPS and everything. So literally, with a click of a button, you can deploy it onto the device just by using the application itself. Yeah. Well, if you basically there's the option there when you first built it. It says, do you want to build it for PhoneGap? There was another one in brackets that says local. So you would choose local for hosting it for the web. It basically doesn't use the PhoneGap SDK. Okay, but even if you use the PhoneGap SDK and you load up the index.html, it will still work in a browser. But the GPS, the phone-specific aspects will not work because it's accessed in a different way. So yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. So it's just loading the emulator. It takes a while. Yeah. The in Dreamweaver CS5.5, the packager for PhoneGap only has two. It has iPhone and Android. But if you're using Windows with Dreamweaver, you've only got access to the Android. You can't produce an iPhone app with Windows. It's Steve Jobs saying no. With a PhoneGap, even with PhoneGap you can't, because you need Xcode. Xcode is an application which is the SDK. There is no Windows version of it. But saying that, PhoneGap have got a way around it, where they've got a web cloud-based application. You upload your files to PhoneGap.com, you click a button, it does it all server-side. Okay, so they've got they've got X server, the big Apple product. It then crunches that out into a .app, and then you can download it and use it. So technically, yes, you could do it through Windows, but not through Dreamweaver. Yep. You basically build it like you did here, and then you take the files that are finished. You can't go to command, site, mobile applications. You take the files that Dreamweaver has built, then you upload those to PhoneGap or download the PhoneGap and repackage it for the Blackberry. But what you have to do is download the Blackberry SDK manually. So everything is manual, and configure it, set it up, and then deploy it. Yeah. Once you've got the file, you can then submit it to the Google Market, and then you can sell it. I think Google Market take 5%, you keep the rest, and for the iPhone App Store, Apple keep 30% and you keep the rest. So, yeah. Okay. Any last question? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy it. I'll stop the recording, and hopefully I'll see you in the next session.